Vetiva Capital Management Limited has a new report on the industrial sector as far as the sub-Saharan African industrial outlook is concerned. It's very deep, very in-depth. We've only got enough time to go through Nigeria because they touched on Kenya and a bunch of other African nations. So we're just going to stick to Nigeria. We've got with us Abigail Alabi, who of course is a sub-Saharan African industrial goods analyst with the Vetiva Capital. Abigail, you're very welcome. Good morning to you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Great stuff. It's always great to talk about industrials because of how important it is for the respective economies where they are. So we start, of course, focusing on Nigeria, but again, just so the viewers know, it's your report is sub-Saharan Africa. For the key players in the sub-Saharan Africa, in Nigeria, excuse me, revenue growth, I think it was about what, 648?
604 billion.
604 billion. So just marginal 1% growth. Can you talk to us about, why that is?
Okay, so for Q1, we saw domestic headwinds dominate Q1 period, and it was, we saw the cash crunch due to the NI redesign policy. We also saw a slowdown in capital projects due to general election as well. And we also saw the fact that we saw weak capex distribution as well because of general elections. So all of these factors combined caused a marginal increase or a marginal 1% increase in revenue for cement players for Q1 period. So that's one of the reasons we saw and we also saw a contraction in volumes as well for major players in that sector as well. Those are one of the things that caused the decline.
All right, this should be intuitive. Can you talk to us about the relationship between because I think you've got a chart, relationship between the cement, real estate. Yeah, there's the chart right there. Cement, GDP, construction, and real estate. What's happening on this chart here?
Okay, so as we all know, cement is a vital material for construction activities, as it is a binding agent for concrete, and as we all know, concrete is one of the major things we use in the construction industry. So the demand for cement is directly linked to construction activities. So once you see an increase in construction projects, you also see an increase in demand for cement as well as consumption of cement as well. And the same can be said for the real estate sector as well. As we all know, cement is also one of the key things used for real estate activities. And if you see when we see increased investments in real estate, rapid growth in real estate activities, or even a surge in housing demand as well, that will also affect the consumption and also demand for cement. And also for construction and real estate as well, construction companies also help to be able to build residential, commercial, and also industrial properties for the real estate sector. And that also facilitates supply of real estate for the real estate sector as well. It's
looking at the chart, the correlation is almost perfect, as it just so where cement goes in the dark line, construction in red, and real estate in green go as well. Can you talk us through the cost pressures for the players, particularly on the currency side and I guess energy or anything else you want to add that they face?
Okay, over the last few years, the cement sector has been struggling with input costs and majorly focusing on energy. So energy has been one of the largest pain points for the cement industry. And also the cement industry is also very, very energy intensive and it makes use of gas. And as you all know, gas is FX linked and is also vulnerable to price shocks from supply constraints and also naira volatility. However, we have seen cement players try to mitigate the impact of the rising costs by improving their energy mix and also adopting a multi-fuel system. For the likes of Dangote Cement, we are seeing them use the likes of coal and also gas. And we're also seeing Dangote Cement as running fully on gas. And for Lafarge, we are seeing Lafarge trying to adopt the use of, or they have been adopting the use of biomass to be able to mitigate against the use of gas or mainly depending on fossil fuels, which are much more expensive. So we are seeing the use of cheaper biomass, like also industrial waste and also agricultural waste as well. So cement players have been trying over time to be able to mitigate against these rising costs and also to protect their margins as well.
Excellent stuff, Abigail. This is why we have you on the show. So we've got Boa Cement, Dangote, Lafarge, all capital expenditure basically on the energy side. So speaking of capital expenditure, a very important chart here from your report. With respect to capex for the government, it looks like we had, if we can get that chart back up, it looks like we had a bit of a dip. What's your outlook? This is up until half year 2022. So, I mean, I guess it's been a bit of an upswing from 2019. But what are you expecting for, or rather you can talk us through what we're seeing here and then what you expect for capex implementation going into half year 2023 and beyond?
Okay, over the last few years, we have seen that capex implementation has fallen below the 70% threshold. And this is due to the fact that we have a weak revenue generation in Nigeria. And also, they have a ballooning debt stock and also increase the current expenditure. And that has tilted government spending towards higher debt service charge and also payment of salaries for their workers. Also for this year, even though we saw a weak capex in the first half of the year, We expect this to improve following the conclusion of all major political events. However, we are still very, very cautious about the fact that budget implementation will not be up to 70% due to the fact that we still have weak revenue generation. And also we are also concerned about the possible delay of cabinet formation as well. And also we also are very wary of slowdown in budget implementation. So for this year, we are still very, very wary of how budget implementation going beyond 70% for this year. But
this is important, right? Because this is coming from the government, and this is what will play into the revenues for the industrial players if they are, they are part of what the government is trying to do in terms of spending on infrastructure. Yeah, so it's an important link.
Yes, an important link.
Okay, great stuff. All right, let's get into some of the players individually. If we start with Dangote Cement, if you can give us, you guys have a target price of 385 naira. The stock closed at 300 on Friday. So far this year, double-digit return for Dangote. So talk us through this, your bullish price target for the stock.
Okay, so as you know, Dangote Cement has been delivering strong performance over the years, and also following the fact that we have seen the easing of domestic headwinds in Q1, we also expect the fact that we expect the federal government to resume infrastructure investment in the second half of the year. And also for the Nigerian segment, we expect government's infrastructure investments to sustain revenue for the Nigerian segment. And also for the Pan-African segment as well, we have seen commencement of operations in the Senegal and Congo plants after a prolonged period of plant maintenance. So following the resumption of operations in those plants, we expect to see an increased volume for the Pan-African segment, and that will also translates into revenue for that segment as well.
Getting to what about Lafarge? What do you expect from Lafarge?
Lafarge as well, we also expect Lafarge to do well for this year. They have been very, very conscious about managing the energy costs. And we are also very, very optimistic about the fact that Lafarge will continue to manage energy costs throughout the year. And also, they're also going through the bottlenecking process, which would also increase production capacity and also increase volumes as well. And also, we also expect, as the same for Dangote Cement as well, we also expect that since we are going to anticipate a better capex rollout for second half of the year, we also expect this to benefit Lafarge throughout this year. Okay,
so let's say, so Lafarge, they closed at 30, you got a 14-hour price target, Lafarge so far up 24% or so. Julius Berger, this is interesting. So they are more construction. Talk to us about what you're expecting for them.
Okay, for Julius Berger, we also we have a strong outlook for Julius Berger, and pending the time the federal government resumes infrastructure investment, we expect the real estate sector to also sustain growth for Julius Berger. However, we are seeing a high inflationary environment which will affect the cost of building materials. So unless Julius Berger manages its cost items as well, we may likely see a shake in profitability margins. We are still very, very confident that Julius Berger will do well for this year.
Okay, so you see, if I go back now to that capex chart that we had on implementation for the government, out of I guess those three companies, would you say Julius Berger is most exposed to this chart, depending on government projects?
Yes, Julius Berger is mostly exposed, but at the same time, we also expect to see that we also have, they have two business segments. They have business operations they have business revenue from the government and also from the real estate sector as well. So once we do not see sustainable or significant growth from the public sector, we expect that the private sector will also, in a way, sustain or improve performance for Julius Berger in the long run.
Interesting, very interesting. Let's get to BOA. I know that's not part of the coverage, but if we can talk about this deal, because we were with the company when they announced this deal with the International Finance Corporation. Well, what do you make of it, and what it could what it could do for the company, and I guess cement production? Okay,
so this is a very laudable move by BOA Cement, because this also increases their production capacity to about 17 million metric tons. And enables them to expand their reach to other underserved countries. And they also plan to expand or export cement to Burkina Faso, as they already did in the Republic as well. And also the fact that the plan to run mainly on gas will appeal to environmentally conscious consumers and also investors as well in the long run. So I believe that, and also I also believe that there are also other projects in the works as well for BOA Cement to also increase their capacity. And also we have a low cement per consumption in Nigeria and also in Africa as well. So there's a huge potential for BOA Cement to also grow in the Nigerian space and also in the African markets. So this is a good step in the right direction, taking position for the expected increase or the significant increase in cement demand and also cement consumption for Africa.
Now, when I don't want to take you back to the input cost pressures, the conversion, the energy conversion, I guess, to gas and so on, won't that impact margins for these players in the sector going forward?
So there are many using LNG, which is a transition fuel and is slightly cheaper than fossil fuels as well. But however, for last year, we saw gas supply disruption affect volumes. But this year, we're expecting improvements in gas supply, and that was so. And since we are going to see improvements in gas supply, we'll most likely not see a major price shock for the price of gas. So once we see like an improvement in gas supply for the cement industries, we'll most likely see that ease margins and also increase volumes as well. Inflation
keeps coming up when we talk about consumer goods. I know you're not a consumer goods analyst, so we'll keep it with Sub-Saharan Africa. But can you touch on that again as far as those cost pressures? We talked about this conversion now on energy. Inflation is still a major headwind for the sector.
Yes, inflation is a major headwind for the sector. As we have seen, we saw so for Q1, we saw the average cost for the cement industry go by 40, or we saw it take about 44% of revenue for Q1. And that shows you how much inflation has eaten deep into the revenue for consumer goods, or for industrial goods rather.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, the management or cement players are actually doing a lot to be able to manage that cost as well. We have seen them move from the use of diesel trucks to CNG trucks for distribution. And as you all know, CNG, that's compressed natural gas, is also much more cheaper than diesel. As you have seen, like a significant rise in the price of diesel ever since the geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine. So we have seen them switch to the likes of CNG, and that also reduces operating expenses as well.
Okay, well, so here's the thing. Fine, that's optimistic that to reduce their operating pressure. But in our last segment with Tilewa Adebajo of the CFG Advisory Group, we're looking at what the government is planning on doing going forward. And with the exchange rates unification, the removal of fuel subsidies, inflation is actually projected to rise down the line. So I don't know if we can net this off. If we net off rising inflation towards the end of this year, which Bank of America, Access Pensions, they're all saying 25-30%. So won't that impact the companies, or will, by the time we get to the end of the year, do you think they would have made the necessary conversion to offset that increase in inflation?
Oh yes, I believe they'll have made necessary strategies to be able to offset that. We also expect an increase in price as well to offset that increased cost. Over time, we have seen inflation affect the industrial cement players, and in turn, they have been able to pass that increased price or increased cost as form of prices to consumers. So we expect them to increase cement prices to offset the increase in inflation as well, or the expected increase in inflation.
Oh, okay. So if they're increasing prices, that's also going to support top line revenue as well, right? Okay, great stuff. Okay, so I guess, taking a macro view of this, of putting everything that we've discussed now, what's your outlook, I guess, for Nigeria?
For Nigeria, as we have seen the domestic headwinds that prevailed in Q, as we have seen it ease, that's a naira shortage, and also we have seen the conclusion of a major political events. So we expect to see improvements in volumes and also revenue for cement players throughout this year. And also for Q1, we saw the decline for real estate activities. And also for the second half of the year, we expect the real estate sector to rebound and also contribute significantly to the growth in the cement industry. And also that also applies to the construction industry as well, as they are all intertwined. And also the fact that the government or federal government or this new administration is also very, very key on improving infrastructure investment. We'll also see that affect performance for the industrial goods sector for the second half of the year. And even though we are still going to see that inflationary pressures still continue, we still expect to see that the cement industry or the cement players will be able to offset those increased costs through prices.
Great stuff. All right, I know we're saying we won't talk about any of that, but as outside of Nigeria, is there healthy competition from any other African nations that you can mention? Maybe Kenya, South Africa? Which other sub-Saharan nation is flexing as much as Nigeria as far as industrials?
Well, we have Kenya. We've also seen Kenya increase, or we have seen so many cement players in Kenya, the likes of Bamburi Cement, which is a dominant player in Kenya as well. And Kenya has also experienced an infrastructure boom, as we have, over time, we have seen the government of Kenya focus on infrastructure investment. And also due to the fact there's also a new administration in Kenya, which has also focused on infrastructure investments, so most likely see improved, or most likely see an increase in cement demand and consumption from that segment. And also they also have so many development plans in place, like affordable housing, and also they also have a rising population as well. So to be able to cater for that rising population, they also need to have an increase in infrastructure investment to cater for this population. And one of the key things the government is focused on is public-private partnership. and also affordable housing for most of their citizens too.
That is two incredibly key points there on particularly affordable housing and being able to grow that over time. Great stuff. Abigail Alabi, Sub-Saharan African Industrial Analyst with Vetiva Capital Management. Really thank you so much for your time and this great report.
Thank you for having me.